Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 14 waiver wire ads for the 2024 fantasy football season. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 12 waiver wire ads on the week. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. It is also important to note that before we get on into things, there are 6 teams on bye this week: the Ravens, the Broncos, the Texans, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Commanders. So make sure you stay tuned through the whole video, because you might have a whole lot of open spots in your roster that you need to add players for. So without further ado, let's get on in to today's video. We begin with the number 1 waiver wire ad for week number 14, and that is Isaac Guerendo, running back of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Chicago Bears at home in Santa Clara this week. For Guerendo, he is rostered in 1.3% of leagues on ESPN. Now, when it comes to rostership percentage from website to website, platform to platform, in some cases, there could be a very drastic difference from, say, ESPN to NFL or Yahoo to CBS. Sometimes they are all in the same range, so it really just does depend. When it comes to Guerendo, though, he is going to be widely available because entering into last week, he was the running back 3 on the 49ers. But now he's the running back number 1 because Christian McCaffrey is out for the next 6 weeks, and Jordan, the numbers, Mason, what do they mean, is on IR with a high ankle sprain. So that leaves Guerendo at the top of the charts, back in your hearts, as the running back 1 on the team. Now, do I believe that Guerendo is the most talented running back on earth? No. And do I believe that the 49ers are this outstanding offense that we thought they would be? Fuck no, baby. But what I do know is that Isaac Guerendo, when he has received touches, has looked solid. And Kyle Shanahan is a run game guru. Despite the fact that the offensive line isn't the best, this is a team that runs the rock very effectively. Last week, after the injuries ahead of him, Guerendo finished the game as the running back 33 in Buffalo in the snow. 4 carries for 19 yards and a touchdown. 1 reception on 1 target for -3 yards. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Guerendo is the second coming of Christian McCaffrey, but what I will say is, if you are down bad at running back, or if you just lost Christian McCaffrey, or if you just lost Jordan Mason, you need to be pulling up to the waiver wire and unloading the fab fucking clip on Isaac Guerendo. I understand that it might potentially not pan out because the 49ers wave the white flag and the team just isn't as great offensively. I understand that. But in terms of finding a running back on the waiver wire that will be as useful as Isaac Guerendo at this point in the season, week 14 is very low. This is also a good point to point out that every week recently in the waiver wire, we've been talking about handcuffing your running back. Make sure that you have your running back's handcuffs entering into the fantasy playoffs, because if your Breece Hall goes down, if your Bijan goes down, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, obviously I'm just mentioning names, your running back 1 goes down, you want to make sure that you have their handcuffs so you're not completely screwed. At number 2, we have Cedric Tillman, wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh, 49.5% rostered on ESPN. Now, Cedric Tillman is out tonight in that matchup up against the Broncos, and prior to his injury, he was kind of on a downward skid, right? But prior to the bye and prior to him getting hurt, he scored 18 or more points in 3 straight games. And I do strongly believe that he is the most talented wide receiver on this team. Sure, they have Elijah Moore, they have Jerry Jeudy, and it's not like those guys are some complete and utter schlubs, but I do really believe that famous Jameis Winston, the crab stealer man himself, will be able to elevate this offense week in and week out. And a guy like Cedric Tillman, who in my opinion is the wide receiver 1 on the team, I get he's not widely available. Most of you guys won't be able to pick him up, so I'm not going to sit here and wax poetically about him and give him the Gawk Gawk 9000 special for an hour here, because some of you might just skip right over this part because, Nick, Cedric Tillman isn't available in my competent league. Well, when the guy's been banged up for so long, there's a chance that people dropped him. And again, I believe he's the #1 receiver in Cleveland. Next up, we got Adam Thielen, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. 27.3% rostered on ESPN for Thielen. Now, he was the wide receiver 5 last week versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All of these numbers are prior to Monday Night Football tonight. So just in case you're like, Nick, I actually looked it up, and Adam Thielen was actually the wide receiver 7, not the wide receiver 5. Are you pulling these numbers out of your behind? No, that's just why they are like that. So 8 receptions on 10 targets for 99 yards, 1 yard, just the tip away from 100 yards, and a touchdown. Adam Thielen, despite being an unk, despite being old as hell, he led the team in targets with 10. Moore had 9. That is David Moore. Tommy Make That Ass Tremble. And Xavier, somebody touch my Leggett, had 8. Leggett played 96% of the snaps. David Moore played 90%. Thielen 73%. And a guy named Tompkins played 9%. Adam Thielen being the #1 receiver on an offense where Bryce Young actually looks really good means that you need to pick him up. I understand some people, they don't have this glaring hole at wide receiver, right? But if your wide receiver 2, your flex, feels a little bit suspect every single week, I definitely think Adam Thielen is worthy of the spend in terms of fab. This could be a letdown game up against the Philadelphia Eagles, but going forward, again, with how well Bryce Young has played, I really think Adam Thielen is the head honcho, the head of the table. Shout out Solo Sokoa as the wide receiver 1 on this team. Next up, we got NWI, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, wide receiver of the Les Titans, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Tennessee. 19.9% rostered on ESPN. And honestly, Nick Westbrook might be the only 10 that I see, pause, because this guy is on fire. He is dominating 50 Shades of Grey style week in and week out. Wide receiver 7 last week in Washington in a game where the Tennessee Titans got rolled up and smoked like a blunt. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine was still able to elevate. 3 receptions on 8 targets for 61 yards, and not 1, but 2 touchdowns in that game. Over the last 8 games, he has 8 total touchdowns. In that stretch of 8 games, he only has 1 game without a touchdown. Now, even with the touchdowns, Nick Westbrook isn't always a reliable top 24 guy. He's not even always a reliable top 30 guy, but in a wet dream spot up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, when there are 6 teams on bye, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is 100% startable. Next up, we got MVS. We got another guy with a big name. Shout out to Esteban Julio Ricardo Menendez, or however you said his name, the Bell guy from Esteban, from Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. MVS, wide receiver of the New Orleans Saints, going up against the G-Men, the Giants in MetLife, 22.6% rostered on ESPN. Now, wide receiver 31 last week up against the Rams, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 36 yards and a touchdown. Now, just like Nick Westbrook, MVS sucks in touchdowns like his name was Angela White. 4 touchdowns over the last 3 games. He has still yet to receive more than 4 targets in a single game, but hey, let's be honest. Let's just be real. If the touchdowns are coming, you can definitely start him in weeks like this when everyone and your mama is on bye. Plus, maybe the fact that Taysom Hill is hurt, which sucks. The GOAT Taysom Hill got hurt. Maybe that'll end up, maybe MVS will now get 4 targets. Or maybe now he's getting 5 targets a game. That would be real splendid for MVS owners. Next up, we got Caleb Williams, quarterback of the Chicago Bears, going up against the San Francisco 49ers in Santa Clara. 37% roster on ESPN. Now, maybe all that painting your nails is working. That Jared McCain fella in Philly in the NBA looking like the rookie of the year. Now, I don't know if Caleb Williams is going to be the rookie of the year because Bo Nix has been absolutely fucking phenomenal, like that chick's rack that was next to in the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. Shout out to Sidney Thomas, quarterback 4 in Detroit last week. 20 completions on 39 attempts for 256 yards, and not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns with 4 rushes for 39 yards and a run that almost murdered him because he just didn't jump out of bounds for some reason. Back-to-back games with 25 plus points and back-to-back games with 2 or more touchdowns and no interceptions. The firing of Shane Waldron really lit a fire under the metaphorical ass of Caleb Williams with the new play calling. Now, they have fired resident dumbfuck, I almost said Waldron again, Eberflus. That guy is so fucking stupid. I can't believe that the game ended like that on Thanksgiving up against the Lions. Now, Caleb Williams did his job. He played great, so we can't really blame him, but also, why did he not call a timeout? It is what it is. We're not going to talk about that for 8 hours here. You've already probably heard a million other people talking about, man, that Matt Eberflus guy's a real dumb bastard. Why did he not call a timeout, right? We all know that. I was watching the game. I was throwing up the tea on my goddamn couch watching the game. I was like, call a timeout, call a timeout, call a timeout, call a timeout. And even, I forgot who was announcing the game, but they were like, hey, Eberflus, maybe call a fucking timeout. It was very funny, but Caleb's been really, really good, and the 49ers defense is not so hot, so I like Caleb's shot this week to potentially finish as a top 10 quarterback yet again. Next up, we got a guy whose name sounds fake. A name so fake, it sounds like you're signing the bottom of a letter. Sincere McCormick, running back of the Las Vegas Raiders, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay, 0.1% rostered on ESPN. Running back 34 last week in Kansas City, 12 carries for 64 yards, 2 receptions on 2 targets for 1 yard. Now, Zamir White has been dealing with the quad injury. Alexander Mattison has been dealing with the ankle injury. And last week, Abdullah led the backfield 62% to 38% in terms of snaps, but McCormick led the 2 backs in terms of touches. McCormick's kind of the new shiny piece, right? He's the shiny Pokemon, right? When you get the nice, shiny fucking Dragonite, you're like, I don't want to play with the other Dragonite anymore, right? When you're playing Pokemon Go to the goddamn polls. So Sincere McCormick could become the running back 1 on the team. Now, Nick, Zamir White could come back. Madison can come back. I'm not saying that Sincere McCormick's at the top of the waiver wire ads. He's running back. He's one of the running back ads. He's ad number 7. If he's available, you're down bad at running back, you might as well scoop him for the upside, especially since Aiden O'Connell has looked competent as of recent. Again, I'm not going to sit here, though, and pretend that Aiden O'Connell is some amazing quarterback, though, because I don't even think Aiden O'Connell's parents believe that. Next up, we got Will Dissly, tight end of the LA Chargers, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, 32.9% rostered on ESPN. And honestly, I think people are going to start dropping him like it's hot, like that Snoop Dogg song, because Will Dissly was the tight end 9,000 last week up against the Falcons, even though that's not technically true. He didn't score a single fucking point in Atlanta. But before we talk about Dissly some more on the rest of the waiver wire ads, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you'll receive your free pick. So tonight, this video is definitely not making it out before Monday Night Football. If it did, it would be Jameis Winston higher than half a total yard. But instead, I'm giving you guys LeBron James higher than half of a total point, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Even if you know nothing about basketball, you know who LeBron is. You know he's going to get higher than half a total point, and you don't have to match that with an NBA player. You can match that with a player in the NFL. If both your picks hit, you'll get 3 times what you put in your pick 'em. If you do multiple other picks, they all have to hit, but the payout will be higher again. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog, promo code Notorious, to claim your free pick, or click on the link in the video description, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. And as we get further and further into the season, we'll also be doing some live stream playoff drafts over on Underdog. So back on into things here. Will Dissly, this guy spit roasted us. He did us dirty last week. 1 target, 0 receptions. Now, prior to last week, he had 6 targets in 3 of the prior 4 and had 2 10-plus point performances. So I don't think you should be shivering me timbers, right? Panicking too hard after 1 down game. In my opinion, Will Dissly is still startable, and I think the Chargers offense will look a whole lot better in the future compared to what they looked like up against the Falcons, because honestly, the Chargers defense had a bailout special up against the Falcons, and Kirk Cousins looked like he licked fucking windows in that game. He was so bad, the type of guy that needs to wear a bus Wear a bus needs to wear a helmet onto the bus. Next up, we got Jeremy McNichols, running back of the Commanders, on bye, 11.1% rostered on ESPN. Running back 52 last week up against the Titans. 6 rushes for 32 yards. Now, Eckler is on IR, so it is McNichols' time as the running back 2 on the team. So if you have B-Rob, make sure you scoop up make sure you scoop up Jeremy McNichols. Now, I know, Nick, look at the snaps. Brian Robinson played 47%. Chris Rodriguez played 28%, and McNichols only played 25%. Does that mean Chris Rodriguez is the number 2 back on the team? No. I believe he played more snaps because it was a blowout. Like I talked about Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, the Titans got their ass blown out like they went to Taco Bell at 3 a.m. Right? You ever drank a large amount of alcohol? Go to Taco Bell, you eat it, you go to sleep. An hour later, you are just in so much pain. It's coming out like it's sink or something. It's real bad. Too much information, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Jeremy McNichols feels like the running back 2 on the team. Brian Robinson has been getting banged up recently. He's probably still banged up going into the bye week. If something was to happen to him going forward, I definitely think you'd want Jeremy McNichols. Next up, we got Kimani Vidal, running back of the LA Superchargers, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. 10.7% rostered on ESPN. Running back 60 last week at Atlanta. 4 rushes for 20 yards. Edwards played 52% of the snaps, Vidal 26%, and Hassan Haskins 15%. Gus Edwards is not effective at all. Watching Gus Edwards run, he runs at the speed that old people have intercourse, right? He runs incredibly slow. He runs like he is stuck in slow motion. He runs like they're shooting one of those Baywatch movies and the chicks are running on the beach and everything's jiggling up and down. That's the type of slow-mo that Gus Edwards is running in. So again, I don't want to sit here and be like, Kimani Vidal is going to take over Gus Edwards, because I don't think that necessarily. But again, when the waiver wire pickups are barren, I don't really think that a guy like Kimani Vidal, with upside, becoming the number 1 running back potentially on a very good offense that likes to run the ball, it definitely makes sense to pick him up. Next up, we got Devaughn Vele, wide receiver of the Denver Broncos, on bye this week, 6.2% rostered on ESPN. Now, Vele plays tonight up against the Browns, so we have to go back to week 12 for his stats, even though this probably comes out like in the first quarter of that game. Week 12 up against the Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. He went 6 of 9 for 80 yards, 3 straight games with 10 or more points. Now, we all know Courtland Sutton and Bo Nix are a combo like peanut butter and jelly, right? They are a elite level combo. Courtland Sutton is getting peppered in targets. He's getting fed. Like, you know, if you've ever seen like one of those old school movies where like the rich dude is still in there and then there's this chick that's feeding him grapes, right? He's getting fed like that, right? Courtland Sutton is getting a lot of targets, but so is Vele. And while I don't know how he does tonight, I assume he has at least a halfway enough decent game for me to quantify picking him up, especially because maybe coming out the bye, Bo Nix starts playing even better, and he's already playing mighty fine. Final waiver wire out of the week is Bryce Young, a quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, going up against the Birds in Philadelphia. 3.8% rostered on ESPN. Week 13 versus the Bucks, he was the quarterback. 26 completions on 46 attempts for 298 yards and a tug. 3 rushes for 17 yards and a tug. So 2 tugs I was about to make a joke. 2 tugs in Florida must be Robert Kraft, if you guys remember that, but that game was actually in Carolina. So Bryce Young, 2 touchdowns, almost 300 passing yards, 300 all-purpose yards. Round of applause for Bryce Young, man. Round of applause, because I really thought it was over for Bryce Young. I think most people thought that. Once the Red Rifle Andy Dalton replaced him, it seemed over. Finished. Right? It's donezo for Bryce Young, but he's played real well, especially in back-to-back weeks. He looked good up against the Chiefs in week 12 as well. Now, I don't really think anyone should be bending over backwards here for Bryce Young. Ultimately, 2 great games doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to come out here and be the quarterback 7 again like he was last week, especially in this matchup. But again, when there's 6 teams on bye, But there's quarterbacks that you've been playing, like Lamar Jackson, Bo Nix. Some of you guys, Jaden Daniels, obviously. Some of you guys might be playing CJ Stroud. Some of you guys might have to play Draco May. Some of you guys might have had to have been playing Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson. So while I'm not going to sit here and fucking suck the dude off metaphorically, of course, I do definitely think he's worthy of an ad if you have to play him this week because there are 6 teams on buys. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you didn't enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video to help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Make sure you guys check out Underdog on Tuesday. It is LeBron James, higher than half of a total yard if you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Again, you match LeBron with any player playing in the NFL if you want to do NBA, and if you do 2 picks, it's 3 times what you put in your pick, and if you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher. Obviously, all of them have to hit, so make sure you guys check that out, promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description. I love you guys, long time. Hope you guys have a great one, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another banger of the video. Have a great one. Thank you guys for all the support. I love you. Have a great one. As always, good boy.